1931, the year of giants, jailbirds, and the anthem of a new age. Welcome to 1931. If 1930 was a long sigh of disappointment, 1931 is the year we decided to build a monument so tall we could see the prosperity that was supposedly just around the corner. This is the year we finally gave a tax bill to the man who ran Chicago. The year we officially turned a drinking song into a national anthem. And the year we realized that even if we couldn't afford dinner, we still wanted to read a book about how to cook it. Stick around, because 1931 is the year the Great Depression got real and America got tough, proving that we could still break records even when we were broke. The year started with a rare moment of legislative harmony in a town that usually couldn't agree on the weather. In March 1931, President Hoover signed an act that officially made the Star-Spangled Banner the national anthem of the United States. It had been a popular tune for over a century, but it took a decade of lobbying and a global crisis to finally give us a song that everyone was expected to sing, even if almost no one could actually hit that high note. 1931 was the year we got our official soundtrack, giving us something to hum while we waited in line for a bowl of soup. While we were singing in the streets, a much darker drama was unfolding in a courtroom in Alabama. This was the year of the Scottsboro Boys, 9 black teenagers falsely accused of a crime they didn't commit. Their trial became a lightning rod for the civil rights struggle, exposing a legal system that was more interested in skin color than evidence. 1931 was the year the world looked at the American South and saw a reflection of injustice that no amount of patriotic music could drown out, beginning a legal battle that would drag on for decades and change the face of American law forever. But if you wanted a victory for the good guys, you looked toward the tax office in Chicago. After years of murder, bootlegging, and corruption, Al Capone was finally convicted, not for killing his rivals, but for failing to pay his taxes. It was a masterpiece of boring, bureaucratic justice led by Eliot Ness and a team of accountants. 1931 was the year the Untouchables proved that a ledger could be more dangerous than a Tommy gun, ending the reign of Scarface and proving that even a king of crime eventually has to pay his share to Uncle Sam. While the gangsters were going to jail, the engineers were going to the clouds. In May 1931, the Empire State Building was officially opened in New York City. It was the tallest building in the world, a 102-story Art Deco masterpiece built in record time. But because of the Depression, half of the offices were empty, earning it the nickname the Empty State Building. 1931 was the year we built a cathedral to a commerce that didn't exist anymore. A silver needle in the sky that served as a giant, beautiful reminder of how high we could fly and how hard we could fall. If you were one of the millions of people staying at home because you couldn't afford a night out, 1931 gave you a survival manual for your kitchen. Irma Rombauer self-published a book called The Joy of Cooking. It was written for a new generation of women who suddenly found themselves without servants and with very little money. 1931 was the year we turned cooking from a chore into a science and a joy, proving that even when the ingredients were cheap, the American spirit still wanted a seat at a well-set table. While Irma was in the kitchen, a one-eyed pilot named Wiley Post was busy making the world feel a lot smaller. In June 1931, he and his navigator Harold Gatty completed a record-breaking flight around the world in just under 8.5 days. They flew through fog, mechanical failures, and exhaustion to prove that the airplane was no longer a toy, but a bridge between continents. 1931 was the year we realized that the entire planet was just a week's flight away, turning the vast, mysterious globe into a manageable neighborhood for anyone with enough fuel. Back in the States, the state of Nevada decided it was time for a radical experiment to stay afloat during the Depression. In March 1931, they officially legalized gambling and shortened the residency requirement for a divorce to just 6 weeks. It was a desperate move to attract tourists and their money, turning a dusty desert town into the divorce capital of the world and laying the foundation for what would eventually become Las Vegas. 1931 was the year we decided that if we couldn't be rich, we could at least be lucky. Or at least single, proving that vice could be a very effective economic stimulus. As the desert was heating up, the light was going out on the man who had lit up the modern world. In October 1931, Thomas Edison passed away at the age of 84. President Hoover asked all Americans to turn off their lights for 1 minute in tribute, a gesture that plunged the country into a symbolic darkness. 1931 was the year we lost the Wizard of Menlo Park, the man who had patented the future, leaving us with his light bulbs, his phonographs, and a legacy that defined every single aspect of the life we were currently struggling to maintain. To bridge the gap between the old world and the new, October 1931 also saw the opening of the George Washington Bridge connecting Manhattan to New Jersey. It was the longest suspension bridge in the world at the time, a graceful web of steel that made the commute easier and the skyline even more iconic. 1931 was the year we proved that we could still build connections even when we were falling apart, turning a river into a road and a massive engineering challenge into a symbol of American resilience. Finally, the world of science gave us a glimpse into the very building blocks of the universe. In 1931, Harold Urey discovered deuterium, or heavy hydrogen. It was a breakthrough that would eventually lead to the development of nuclear energy and the atomic bomb. 1931 was the year we started peeking into the engine room of reality, finding secrets that were as powerful as they were terrifying, and ensuring that the next decade would be defined by a kind of power that Thomas Edison could only have dreamed of. While the Empire State Building was reaching for the light, Hollywood was diving deep into the shadows. 1931 was the year Universal Pictures decided that America needed a good scare to distract it from the bank failures. In February, Bela Lugosi starred in Dracula, bringing a hypnotic, aristocratic evil to the screen that changed the horror genre forever. Then, in November, Boris Karloff shambled into theaters as Frankenstein's monster. 1931 was the year we realized that the real monsters weren't just the ones on Wall Street. They were the ones we created in the lab and invited into our nightmares, beginning a golden age of horror that proved we loved to be terrified almost as much as we loved to be rich. But the real drama wasn't just in the movies, it was at the card table. This was the year of the Bridge Battle of the Century, a high-stakes marathon match between Eli Culbertson and Sidney Lenz. It lasted for weeks, was covered by every major newspaper, and made the game of contract bridge a national obsession. 1931 was the year we learned that, in a world where everything felt out of control, a deck of cards and a complex system of bidding could provide the perfect, logical escape, proving that Americans would bet on anything, even if the stakes were just bragging rights and a bit of temporary fame. While the men were playing cards, a woman from Chicago was proving that American compassion could cross any border. In December 1931, Jane Addams became the first American woman to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. She had spent her life fighting for the poor at Hull House and campaigning against the madness of war. 1931 was the year the world finally recognized the mother of social work, reminding a nation obsessed with rugged individualism that looking out for your neighbor was the most revolutionary act of all. As Jane was collecting her prize, thousands of miles away in the desert, we were busy trying to move a river. This was the year workers began digging the massive diversion tunnels for the Hoover Dam. It was brutal, dangerous work in 120-degree heat, but it was also a paycheck in a world where those were becoming extinct. 1931 was the year we started to literally reshape the face of the West, turning a canyon into a construction site and proving that even a broke nation could still bend nature to its will with enough dynamite and desperation. In the world of sports, 1931 gave us a moment of pure, unexpected magic that made the Sultan of SWAT look human. In April, a 17-year-old girl named Jackie Mitchell took the mound in an exhibition game and did the impossible. She struck out Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig back-to-back. The commissioner of baseball was so embarrassed, he banned women from the game shortly after, claiming it was too strenuous. 1931 was the year a teenager with a left-handed sinker proved that the legends were beatable, leaving a legacy that still makes every unbeatable giant look over their shoulder. If you weren't watching Jackie, you were probably following the 1931 World Series, where the St. Louis Cardinals finally got their revenge on the Philadelphia Athletics. It was a gritty 7-game battle that turned Pepper Martin into a national hero and gave the Midwest something to cheer about while the crops were failing. 1931 was the year baseball proved it was more than just a game. It was the glue that held a fracturing society together, providing a cheap seat and a shared roar for anyone who had a nickel left for a ticket. But as the cheers faded, a much grimmer sound was rising from the West. This was the year that Walter Waters, a jobless veteran from Oregon, started organizing what would become the Bonus Army. They were veterans of the Great War who were tired of waiting for the bonuses they had been promised. 1931 was the year the Bonus Expeditionary Force began its long, slow march toward Washington, a signal that the patience of the American people was finally wearing thin, and that the Hoovervilles were about to become a political movement that couldn't be ignored. While the veterans were marching, the funny papers were getting a dose of hard-boiled reality. In October 1931, the detective Dick Tracy made his debut. With his yellow trench coat and his high-tech gadgets, he was the law and order hero we needed in a world of Al Capones and corrupt cops. 1931 was the year we turned our obsession with crime into a comic strip, proving that even if the real police couldn't always catch the bad guys, a square-jawed detective in a newspaper could always find the evidence. To add a bit of technological wonder to the end of the year, 1931 was also when the first electric razor hit the market, invented by Jacob Schick. It was expensive and clumsy, but it was a promise that the future would be more convenient and less bloody, at least in the bathroom. 1931 was the year we started to electrify our morning rituals, proving that even in a depression, the American consumer was still looking for the next gadget that would save them 5 minutes of work. Finally, as the lights went down on 1931, the national anthem we had officially adopted earlier that year was playing on every radio. We were a nation that was scarred by injustice, bankrupt by greed, but still building bridges and striking out legends. We entered the year looking for a way out, and exited it by looking for a way up. Stick around, because 1932 is coming, and it's bringing the Lindbergh kidnapping, the Bonus Army riot, and a man named Franklin who promised a new deal for a nation that was finally ready to change the deck.